Hello and welcome to Discover Energy Work, and we're back here again. But today actually is kind of a special day. I really can't say that often I've had what I feel is a celebrity, and somebody who's written a book which I think is, I would say it's got genius written all over it. So I have Lorna Gabriel here with me. Thank you so much for joining us, Lorna.
Yes, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and you've written this book, and one of the things that one of the first things that really gripped me in the book was hanging on a meat hook, where you're talking about like hanging on a meat hook. And I practice Tai Chi, and there's a Tai Chi master that says you want to be hanging from the top of your head on a meat hook, just relax, so relaxed in your body, like dead meat when you move. And I was like, but I feel that you're going even deeper, like you're going down some steps into a basin. The picture is just incredible. And I feel like it says that you went through a rather incredible transformation. Can you give us some background to everybody about that?
Sure.
Or am I jumping in too quickly?
No. Oh, hell no. That's not possible with me.
Cool.
Well, so I've been doing this work for since the beginning of 2017. So 17, 18, 19, 20, 20, no. 5 years? That's not possible. I think so. Wow, that's like legit. Yeah. So I've been doing this work for 5 years, and have a very successful company doing work in really the cutting edge, the bleeding edge of consciousness is really just kind of the best way to talk about it. I mean, I help people, I help entrepreneurs discover their genius, their true. Well, we don't need to go into the metaphysics and the energetics of genius, but that's what I help them do. And then I help them monetize their genius. And so it gets into some brass tacks, sales, marketing, business building kind of stuff, but it's all underpinned with the understanding and the application of consciousness, metaphysical law, spiritual law, energetic law. So I got into this. I mean, I think as anybody does who is on a path of evolution and growth, because I had a major dark night of the soul before that. And
right.
It's like the Jonah and the whale story. It's I was running from my calling, and when you agree in this lifetime to live out your calling, your mission, and you don't do it, you're going to be in big trouble, and you have nobody to blame but yourself. Right. So the big trouble, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're the one that was trying to avoid your calling and the big trouble. What was that?
Yep. So the big trouble was, so I'll tell you what the fall from grace was. So I spent about 15 to 20 years in corporate America. I sat on the boards of companies. I helped build and run companies. I had it all, quote unquote. Made really good money. I had all the things, and was really good at what I did. And I was miserable. I was absolutely every day dreading waking up and putting on a facade and pretending that I fucking cared about any of the shit that I was doing, which I didn't at all. And it's because fundamentally, I did not believe in, I did not believe that if I stepped into my spiritual genius, that I would make much money. It really came down to, do I want the nice things that I have, or do I want to follow my calling and be a poor writer, or I didn't even know what I was really supposed to do. My dad is a priest. I have a lot of priests and missionaries in my family. In fact, I have there's actually a martyr in my family, a man who was killed, speared in the back by a tribe of cannibals in, I believe it was Ecuador, as a missionary. So I have missionary blood in me. So I always felt that I was meant to do something like that. But my message, as you know, because you've read the book, is an uncomfortable message. It is not a popular message at all. It's kind of the most unpopular message you could be carrying in these days. And it's getting more unpopular.
Well, but I feel like it's how can I say, there is a certain rationale to it. I mean, I get that, but it's like, right, I hear what you're saying. If you don't own up to your dark side, then you're only living half a life. Could I say that? Would that be putting it too simply?
Well, yeah, that is a simplification. There's many aspects to my message. One of the most confronting is that there are no victims. There are no victims. They don't exist. Victims do not exist. So all of this stuff in the world about activism and Me Too and all the fucking shit that's going on is just a bunch of shit. It's just a bunch of bullshit. It's people unwilling to own their own power and take control and radical responsibility of their own energy mastery. And if they did that, they would not be available to any kind of shit happening in their lives. I mean, it's really that simple. Instead of everybody going around blaming other people and everybody else for their, wounds and their, it's crazy. It's just getting insane. So part of the message is that there are no victims. Hard stop. I understand if you take that to its logical conclusion, you get into some really sticky spaces and really sticky questions about people and what they've been through as, children and all kinds of stuff. And the fact is that there are no victims. And, there's a lot of kind of nuanced metaphysics behind that, because people tend to think that I'm saying that people consciously choose their conditions. And that is not true. It is an unconscious choice at a soul level in order to evolve and learn. And sometimes you choose really shitty situations, truly tragic on a human level, devastating situations, but you still chose it. And
you must have experienced this, like, personally, like
I don't, I've talked a little bit about I was in an abusive relationship, I was slapped around. My growing up years were very dark. There was, I'm on very good terms with my parents now. So I feel a little conflicted, talking about this, but the fact is that it was not there was emotional abuse. There was mental, abuse, and it was like living in a war zone emotionally. There was, I was diagnosed a couple of years ago, actually at the beginning of this business, a couple months before, with PTSD from that, which at the time I was like, I'm not a veteran. Like I haven't been in war. Like, how do I have PTSD? And that's ridiculous, and my psychologist at the time said, you qualify because of what you went through. I've heard stories where mine just looks like a walk in the park, and I'm not, but the fact is that I chose those conditions at a soul level. I chose them. I wouldn't say that I was raped, but my friends at the time when it happened told me that I was raped. This was in high school. I chose those conditions. I mean, I radically apply this to myself. There is nothing that I excuse in my experience and what I've been through as anything other than I chose this. And now I have to figure out why the fuck I chose that. Why the fuck did I choose this? And so that's part of that. That was a big that was a big part of the message that I was unwilling to carry, because, well, for obvious reasons. I mean, how can you, nobody wants to hear that message. So how am I going to get it heard, and who's going to listen to me, and how am I going to make money off of, this? No, I mean, this is ridiculous. This is crazy. I mean, it's just crazy. I need to just put my nose to the grindstone and do what I'm good at, which is sales and marketing and building businesses, and just kind of ignore this tap on my shoulder that, would not go away. So I did that. And then, my calling came calling, and I was fired from the family business that I had been helped build and worked in for 12 years. And I immediately jumped into another job, reporting to the CEO of a company, and I turned the company around in 10 months, and he fired me. Because I was just a nightmare of a person. I was miserable, and I was just really a nightmare. And so then I thought, okay, this is the sign that I needed, that I need to start building this business. But I was mentally and emotionally very unstable, and in a very toxic relationship. And so I spent 4 years and I burned through everything, all of my money, all my savings, all my 401k, everything all my credit cards, everything, trying to get this business off the ground for 4 hellish years. I was suicidal. I had a nervous breakdown. I checked myself into a clinic. I mean, it was life or death. And, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. So I eventually ended up living with my parents in their spare bedroom at the age of 43 with my 5th grade daughter, and trying to rebuild. So then I started to rebuild, but how did I rebuild? I went back to plan B, which a lot of people do when it gets too hard and crazy and scary and shameful and embarrassing. Go back to what you know. So that's what I did. And if you do that, it's just a matter of time before, you have to learn the lesson. This is the thing. You had to learn the lesson. So I went back and I got a sales job, and I couldn't sell. I literally could not. I couldn't do the only thing that I knew how to do. And at that point I was also, I was in a very emotionally abusive relationship, and I was trying to get the guy back. I was mentally unstable. I was crying every day. I couldn't function. I mean, it was terrifying. And so I knew I was going to get fired again. So I quit instead, and I jumped into another job, and I was fired in 10 weeks. And that's when the world kind of, ended, because I had destroyed any chance of going back to that world. I knew I couldn't go back to that world, but mentally and emotionally, I was going to end it. I say with all seriousness, if I didn't have a daughter, I would not be here. And so my parents stepped in and gave me the time and the space that I needed to figure out what in the fuck was wrong with me. I'm a bright, capable person with potential and promise, and I'm 43, and my life is a fucking mess, and I'm suicidal, and I'm having nervous breakdowns. This is not okay. What the fuck is going on? And I knew what was going on. And so throughout the course of all of this, I was diagnosed, which is one of the things that I talk a lot about, which is the diagnosis of genius as whatever, in my case, it's bipolar and several other things, severe mood and anxiety disorder and PTSD and stuff. And was told I needed to go on medication. And I said, no. And, she said, you need 2 forms of medication just to stabilize. You need to be in 3 meetings a week. I mean, it was, she was like, you are in a bad way. And I was, but I knew why. And I knew that she was not going to be the person to guide me out of it. Right. So this is where the story of the meat hook kind of landed for me. It's actually the story of Inanna, who is the original dark goddess. All dark goddesses spring from her. It's a 5,000-year-old story. and the meat hook moment is, so the story is, she is the goddess of heaven and earth, I believe. And she's got all of her finery on, and she steps down this long stone staircase down to the pit of the earth, because she's going to go visit her sister in hell. Basically, her sister is the goddess of the underworld. And at every step along the way, a guard comes out and demands some of Inanna's finery. And so by the time she gets to the bottom, she's naked and alone and in the pit of the earth. And what I say, and then she's lifted onto a meat hook and becomes just nothing but bone. And then after 3 days, she's lifted off the meat hook. She goes back up the steps, and she, at each step along the way where she had to give a piece of her finery, she is given it back. And so she emerges at the top, arrayed in all her finery and completely transformed. And the meat hook moment is one that I teach on a lot, because it is the most understood moment in consciousness. And it's guaranteed to be diagnosed by mental health professionals. But it is the place of the most profound transformation and transformation. And the place that it takes you is a new place in consciousness. This is not about what I say enlightenment. This is about endarkenment. But it's a moment that requires that you, well, we don't need to go into that. That would be a whole conversation in of itself. But the point being, I went through that later. We'll do that one later. I went through that moment, and I refused to take medication. I knew what this was, and I just decided that I was going to reprogram my own mind and my own consciousness. And I came across the 8 archetypes that most people are very familiar with. And I discovered hidden inside those archetypes, I discovered a profound tool for personal mastery that people have said is the most profound tool they've ever used. And I called it shadow alchemy. And I'm not on medication. I never got on medication. But using that own modality on my own consciousness and my own mind and my own psyche, I started this business, and I did $1 million in sales in 10 months, which has never been done before. I was symptom free. I say I'm still crazy, but I'm highly functional, which is what everybody fears when they know that they have some kind of disruptive genius. I call them dark workers. We are the people who are coming with the disruptive message, the discomfort divinity. Not the message that makes you feel comfortable, not the message that makes you feel even loved, because we have a very distorted definition of love. And so I just, I reprogrammed my own psyche, and I upgraded my own psyche using the energetics and the metaphysics of these archetypes. And that was in 2017, and we're now a multi-million-dollar global company. I have a huge team working for me, and
wonderful.
It's
amazing. It's so great. I mean, I think it's very easy for people when I say, like, you've got a discordant message. I say, like, the rebels, if Jesus were to be here now, they'd be really against him. I mean, when he was there, they were really against him, because he said, by the way, what you're doing is not here. I'd like to point you out. What's the most useful thing I can do is point out to you where you're not right. Not, oh, that's very good what you're doing over there. That's great. Yeah. Come on. who ordered the cheerleader? Like Jesus was the greatest cheerleader, yeah, pom poms, yeah. So you know, I think what you've brought up for me is beautiful, and I like. I think there's one word I want you to get rid of. I mean, because I follow Taoism, and the Tao, it's about letting go, wu wei, letting go of everything. Let go of letting go. Yeah. So a lot of what you say, I can say, I can relate that to the Taoist idea, where it's really about a return to nature, but there is no word that we can use. So everything you think, everything you believe, everything you think you are not as well, you need to let go of to get a glimpse of a bigger, how can I say, a bigger.
Yeah, and I actually I studied Taoism for years and years. I threw coins my mom still sends me her reading every morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was really into it for many years. There is a distinction. It's the meat hook moment is well, I'm trying to articulate. It's not just letting go. There is an active. It's not even an active passivity. It's the most paradoxical moment in consciousness. So everything I say about it, then I have to immediately contradict what I just said, because it is the most paradoxical moment. And it's I don't know. I'm not sure I can, maybe if we have a part two, I'll be able to articulate that.
You know what, the Tao, about the Tao, if you can say what is the Tao, you don't know what is the Tao.
Yeah. But the difference about what this work is, it's not a return to nature, because that is not our, that is not, we are not, I guess I'll just say it this way. We are not beings born of this earth, and we don't operate according to, we can choose to operate according to natural law and according to the laws of nature, but we don't actually have to. And there is a super metaphysical set of spiritual laws, which is where the dark field operates. So there's the light grid, and I don't know if I talk about this in the book, but there's the light grid, which is literally what powers the planet, metaphysically and physically. And that is what establishes spiritual law that we all agree and kind of recognize in all religions and I mean, if you really get down to it, everybody's saying basically the same thing. But there is a new field of consciousness that is being built right now, which is going to bring in the waking dream world, which is the quantum and the 3D worlds coexisting, which is like impossible for us to even conceive of that. And those laws are totally and completely alien. True, they're actually alien to the laws of the earth. So it's not a return to nature. It's actually a recoding of our consciousness to be able to step into and host this brand new field that is coming through. So
yeah, I think in terms of nature, I mean everything. So it's from the beginning, before the beginning of time to after the end of the time. That's if I could say.
Right, but you're still talking about that a what is coming is not yet. So it can't be encompassed, and it's literally coming from nothing. It's being built from the nothing, and it's radically
It's transcendental. It sounds like it's between yin and yang. It's that transcendental moment beyond duality.
You're cutting out.
Oh, sorry, beyond duality. It's that transcendental moment.
What do you mean by that?
So if there's duality, so a before and after, existence and non-existence, it's the creative point of both of those.
What is?
Well, that's what you can't say
What I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Tao says you can't say what it is. I'm not saying that you're saying.
Oh,
what you're saying is the Tao, but
sure yeah.
The Tao is that which can't be expressed. We'll see light and we'll see dark and we'll think that's light, that's dark, and essentially you're missing the point because you're looking at light and dark. Yeah, that's Taoism. That's Tai Chi. Is the middle point. So you have to have these three dynamic energies. You have the yang and the yin, and then what creates the yang and the yin cannot be yin or yang. It's got to be something else. That is the fundamental driving primal energy of the universe. It's called nothingness or Tai Chi, and from that everything appears. But we have a grasping mind, which is always grasping onto the next thing. We let go of something to grasp onto something. And the Taoists want you to return back to the zero, back to the nothingness, so that you go into this, I can't say it's no mind, it's actually it's beyond no mind. No mind's the dual mind, so it's something else. And I feel like in your book, you're just hitting on some, like, beautifully, on some profound truths that I can understand. Okay, yes, I do understand. I'm understanding it from my framework of Tao. But I mean, for me, it's like, yeah, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And so, because when I met my teacher, he introduced me, and I was feeling energy within 3 days. He just put me in this. He's transferred the energy. He actually put a seed of consciousness inside of me. Which when you just relax, it would just go, something else, another program was happening. It was just unbelievable. And so I'm curious, when you went through this process, did weird things start, like sort of doors opening and, things appearing from nowhere start happening?
That's not, I don't have the gift of clairvoyance, and I'm really annoyed about that.
I love that you're annoyed about it.
It super annoys me. A lot of my clients can fucking see shit, ghosts and auras and beings and all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, claircognizance is my most powerful gift. I just know things. I just know them. But in terms of, strange things, I mean, I can't really bring any to mind, but that isn't really how my transformation was conducted. It was really conducted through the psyche. I mean, that's why, I feel like I'm Carl Jung too. I'm essentially taking his work and in some ways completing it and then going to the next stage with it. His work was all about individuation and the process of individuation, and that is what shadow alchemy actually it actually does. That's what it does for people. It completes their full journey of consciousness, which is the hero's journey, and then the heroine's journey, which is the Inanna story. Right. So in my case, my hero's journey was 15 years in corporate America, all the bounty, you know, all the spoils of war, all the titles, you know, all the things that a hero gets. And then everything was taken away and stripped away. And that's the heroine's journey. And then there's the anti-hero's journey, which is what I'm bringing. That is the next stage in the process of, where essentially we go from being the hero in the story, in the fairy tale, to being the monster in the fairy tale. And that's, you know, I mean, we can go into that, but that's essentially what another piece of the message that's very disruptive and uncomfortable.
I'm curious, like, you don't look like a monster to me, but I mean, what do you
have you talked to anybody who used to be in my world and is not in my world anymore?
Well, no.
I've been called everything in the book. I've been called a cult leader. I've been called a narcissist. I've been called a sociopath. I've been called, I've been called every name in the book, you know, by many people. What I mean by the monstrous, and this goes to what I was saying about what's coming is utterly new, and it is not in accord with natural or spiritual law as we know it now. You know, if you look at monsters in fairy tales, they are a law unto themselves. They're the only character, the only entity in a fairy tale that is a law. They are a law unto themselves. They are lawless. And our consciousness, at least at this stage of evolution, has got to operate according to some kind of law. We simply cannot handle the absolute chaos of everyone being a law unto themselves. And I don't mean just kind of doing whatever they want to do. I mean actually accessing a source code that provides them with access to source codes of power and operational energy that is in no relation whatsoever. That's why I call it the irratio is coming. So the ratio is what built the light grid, which is why in the Bible in John, in Greek, you know, it's NRK ho logos. In the beginning was the word logos. And that is all about ratio and rationality and relationship. That is the fundament of the light grid, of our consciousness, our psyche, how everything operates here. And what's coming is the irratio and the monstrous. And of course it's the monstrous to us now, right? It's the monstrous to the hero in the journey who doesn't want to be eaten alive, but for whom being eaten alive is the ultimate transformation. And not just being eaten alive, but becoming the monster on the other side. And this goes to the metaphysics of the waking dream reality, because the waking dream reality is one in which every single entity of consciousness is a law unto themselves and can operate matter at will, as they will. It's a total breakdown, and it's going to be a total breakdown in all of our systems, because if you have no shared reality, and if you have no shared morality, and if you have no shared spiritual law that governs, kind of like what I was just saying, right? If you run from your calling, you'll be held to account for that, because there's a common spiritual law that operates on all of us right now. But that's no longer going to be the case. It's just going to be a crazy different world. So it's not
this vision you got this totally different vision, which is paradigm breaking in a way.
Yeah. And the monstrous, that's what I mean by the monstrous, is that you are a law unto yourself, and can work on the source codes of matter and energy to matter and matter to energy at will, and not according to some shared construct or like operational manual for how to do that. And that's absolutely terrifying to the human. I mean, that's terrifying. That's like the ultimate in the unpredictable, right? The monster is out where the monster is, because we cannot have that kind of unpredictable law unto itself living among us. So the option is to kill the monster, which is what the hero does. And
Lorna, I've got to say, it seems to me that once people get caught offside by their psychics, so their psychics see say they're playing games, or they're not being honest, or whatever, in a lot of ways, the psychic is always the monster, because he's seeing a different reality, which is kind of like, say, a different reality. I'd say another layer of truth, which the person sort of, it's kind of catching the hypocrites out. So in many ways, the psychics have been the monsters. Like I talk about, there's this stigma that there is on mental health, and there's a very much a stigma on psychic. And I'd say if you're psychic, you got a double stigma. And you've got a double stigma. You're not allowed to be depressed. You're not allowed to, say anything which is kooky if you're psychic. Like it's almost like, but what I feel you're saying is very, very interesting. And I think, we're going to see. Well, I'm always fascinated by, the stories I was telling you about the remote viewers that I've had on here. I've had Paul Smith was on here, and whilst the government, the United States government, was spending millions of dollars, they had these psychics who would just go into underground bases with their minds, read codes, read launch codes, go inside, the other side of the world, and go into.
It's like, why are you making it so hard on yourself? Just use the psychic. Oh my God.
Right. So you can see there's a big political problem. Yeah. If the government's like, we're okay knowing what the other people do, but we don't like having our people knowing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the laws are not ready. The laws are not ready. Like if you say there are no victims, I have been in a consciousness where I've experienced that. I've been. I mean, my example of it is I'm sitting in a room. I'm actually an art model. After I met my teacher, I was earning money doing act model jobs, and I was sitting in there. I was sitting there for an hour, 2 hours, just in one pose, and I felt this entity in the room, like a wind going round, and it said like, I felt like, nobody wants it, I'll take it. And it was a cold, and I felt this wind come and land on me. I took it, and I caught a cold. And then I discovered in Japanese that pulling a wind is Japanese for catching cold. So it's literally
amazing.
I chose it. I can't blame anybody for that.
That's fucking hilarious. So it was like, anybody want a cold? Anybody want a cold? Anybody want a cold? You're like, I do. I'd like a cold.
And on another occasion, I had this, something hit me on the head, and I thought it was enlightenment. It was actually a bicycle seat, and my head bled, and I had this strange story. And I had for 3 days, I was hearing other people's thoughts. If they didn't say them, I would say them. If I didn't say that thought, then they would say it. And I'm like, and even to the point that, the shoulder's going to move. If I don't move it, somebody else is going to move the shoulder, and I'd see somebody else move their shoulder. I'm like, wow. Oh wow. Amazing. So we're talking about, like, I mean, what I like to say is, we don't even know what the self is. We, talk about psychology. I mean, I've got a degree in psychology. I mean, my thesis was, we don't know what the self is. There's way too much evidence that it's not what we're talking about. And I don't believe that socially we're ready for a paradigm shift. Legally, we're not. Like the victim, the victim decided to be murdered, so, Your Honor. Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. No, it's the victim's fault.
I know. Not so, for 1,000 years or something. If we even choose that path. But you're absolutely right. I mean, what do you do about the legal system? And I mean, yeah, it's. I mean, but the thing is that when you if you're the monster and everyone else is the monster, then monsters don't take each other to court. Like that's not how they operate. And by then it won't be monstrous. It won't be that will be the term for it, because it will actually be probably, God, or what is actually beyond God, beyond the God archetype. But from our perspective, from our vantage point, it is the monstrous that is coming.
I've got to say, I like your message, and I think it's Dave Chappelle's got this thing on Netflix that he said something apparently that's naughty, and everyone's watching his show now just to see what was the naughty thing he said. And I've got to say, to a certain extent, by having a challenging message, so many people are going to hear you and listen to you, because they're going to go, "What? I could become a monster?" And I love that.
I get a lot of free PR from the people who hate me.
I don't hate you.
They're constantly talking about no, but there are people who really they really do. I mean, they are fucking serious about it. This is serious business, and she needs to be, I mean, it's hilarious to me, but every time they do that, more people come into my world because they're like, wait, what's she saying? Actually, I really resonate with that. So,
a good friend of mine runs a yoga retreat. He founded a yoga retreat, and he's the most spiritual man. But if I ever came up against him in business, I think I'd be shaking in my boots, because he is a warrior. He's full warrior in business. And if you meet him in meditation or talk about spiritual things, you're just like, wow, he's just so impressive. And I think that's where we, it's nice to, take all the archetypes, screw them up into one, and let's start again. Because you can be anything you want, really. So
yeah.
Beautiful talking to you.
Yes, you too. This was great.
I'm afraid what I like to say to people, I just don't. I mean, I'd like to say, first of all, thank you so much for sharing what I think is like incredibly personal things about your life, and thanks. But also, I acknowledge that you, there's certain things you don't want to talk about for the relationship with your family and so on. I really love that you touched on that, and in my very humble little podcast, I'm totally thrilled. I feel it's really good fortune for me, and I feel it's like when I read your book, I was like, I think I know why, because I can feel like you've just got the most incredible energy, which is yes, I think it is Discordian, but it's challenging people to wake up.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yep.
And what advice can you give people if they're just starting on this road to try and discover like their genius? Is there like a one-liner that you have, or not really?
Well, my advice is give up trying to discover your genius. It will come to you. That's the whole process of awakening, and what I call going sane has to be more important than what's my genius. There's this kind of preoccupation and kind of idealization of it, and it's not going. Genius is an imperial frequency of the highest order, and it doesn't fuck around, and it's not here to be like, to serve our needs. That's not genius. Genius right now is what's carrying the monstrous, the monstrous codes. And it is completely disinterested in the comfort of the human narrative, the human experience, the human anything. Is absolutely does not fucking care. And so people who are like, what's my genius? You know, that's the wrong focus. That's just complete wrong focus. What I would say is master your consciousness first. Master your consciousness and do it for real. And that is not easy to do. And all else follows from that.
Super beautiful. I've got to say, I'm reminded of Korbieski. I think he wrote one of his books was about becoming sane, and he said something about like everything you say is not true because the opposite is also true. Something like that. Anyway, that's just a by the by. That's a beautiful message to send to everybody. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.